I did not predict President Trump's victory. I said we would prefer to have Mr. Trump in the office because Mr. Trump, just like people of Azerbaijan, shared fundamental values, including family values. He is the only president that did not start a war, a U.S. president, and during his presidency, you can see that he's the person who aims to end wars, and we're grateful to him personally for his personal aspiration to help Armenia, Azerbaijan to finally come to agreement, despite the fact that he's busier with more global security affairs. He is keeping South Caucasus also on his agenda. We here in Azerbaijan, we are pleased with his victory due to many reasons, and of course, we wish him every success in accomplishing it, especially when draining the swamp and finishing this job.
Gone on too long. Too many innocent people are dying, and we don't want further American involvement in this at all. But I do think what NATO is doing and our allies around the world may be effective. I think we've all had enough of it, and we hope it cocomes to an end soon. But we trust the Commander-in-Chief. He's restoring peace through strength.
Chưa đi cạnh đó đấy.
Welcome back to the SCIF. We are here live in Yerevan, Armenia. Armenia is a very important country. It's the first Christian country, and it's at the crossroads of East and West. And you're seeing that play out on the ground here in Armenia with relations with Russia, with the war and continuing tension with Azerbaijan, with Iran, and with what's going on inside Armenia with the globalist forces trying to destroy the Ukrainian Orthodox Church, the Ukrainian Apostolic Church, which is quite fascinating. 2,000-year-old church, literally the first Christian country, the first Christian cathedral is here, which we'll be visiting and bringing you a lot of information on. But this story is one that we wanted to tell in person, and we're here, and we're going to be doing it for about a week and bringing you a lot of really good content as we produce it over the next few days. I wanted to bring you several stories, but first, this is July 24th. I'm your host, L Todd Wood, and this is your mission brief. Brigitte, Macron sues Candace Owens. We're going to have Thierry Laurent on to talk about that here shortly, and you're going to enjoy what he has to say. He's always insightful as to what's going on in France, because it is really interesting as far as the future of Western civilization and the future of France as to what is happening there. And it's a microcosm or macrocosm of everything that's happening across the world in different countries. Macron wants full power. Thierry's going to tell us all about that. And Armenian Apostolic Church under pressure from globalists. We'll dig into that in depth. That's an important story that we told you we're going to talk about Christian persecution and the destruction of the Christian church. We've done in-depth research in Ukraine on this subject, but we will be now moving to other countries like Armenia and Romania as well. Very, very, very important story. Florida GOP autocrats. The RPOF, the Republican Party of Florida, is not who you think it is, and it's not the gold standard in election integrity, which we have talked about many times with our contributors in Florida, Chris Gleason and Jeff Morgiano. Just so much happening down there, and it's continuing the tyrannical behavior by the Republican Party in Florida. And we're going to talk about the truth behind the Zelenskiy protests in Ukraine. This is very important, and not really many people understand what's going on there. Well, I'm going to bring it to you because we've been on this subject for a long time. I want to say hello to the crew in the chat. You're cleared hot, and I love all the comments. Thank you for that. Please check out whatfinger.com daily in your scan. After cdm.press, put us in your daily scan. We bring you stuff you're not going to get anywhere else, like our current focus on Armenia and the destruction of the Christian church here. But we are global news without the globalist spin here at CDM. We are the new wire service. We're on podcast. We're on X, Gettr. We put up the show on YouTube afterwards, usually, unless it has some vaccine content that we're not allowed to put up. And we're on Rumble, of course, live streaming all the time. And we put up a lot of clips of these shows, individual clips of different speakers. And that's easy for you to digest. I know it's hard to dig through a 2-hour program, but you can put it on double time on podcast and listen to it in your car if you missed the show. With that, we're going to take a quick break. We'll be back on the SCIF, and we've got a lot to talk about today, so stay with us. Thank you.
Well, in the case of hydroxychloroquine and ivermectin, these are two medications that have been FDA approved for use in humans for decades. They are very, very inexpensive. Interestingly, available over the counter in almost every other country other than the US and Canada. You can just walk into a pharmacy and buy them like we buy Tylenol in much of the world because they're that safe. And we've known for decades that ivermectin has very strong antiviral properties. It has anti-inflammatory properties, and both ivermectin and hydroxychloroquine are what we call zinc ionophores. They help to move zinc from the bloodstream into the cell, which is where it needs to be in order to fight off a virus. So lots of application for these, and we have every reason to believe that those drugs also will likely have some efficacy against H5N1 or a number of other respiratory viruses that we may meet down the road.
If you haven't noticed, gold has reached a new high, all-time highs actually, and keeps going up every day. Why is that? It's because precious metals are a long-time historical store of value. And if you own a portfolio and you have assets in the fiat currencies, i.e. stocks, bonds, cash, or whatever, you're vulnerable to hyperinflation, which is coming as our debt explodes another trillion every 90 days. It's really scary. So how do you protect yourself? Go to Advisor Metals. If you look on any of our CDM.press sites, about halfway down, there's an ad for Advisor Metals. Click on it, fill out the form for your contact info, and Ira Bishotsky will contact you and talk to you. It's an easy conversation. There's no sales pitch. He's completely verified by us. He has a regulatory background we've checked into. We've checked with his bankers. We've checked with his IRA custodians for metals, and we can highly recommend Advisor Metals and Ira. So go to Advisor Metals. If you call them directly, tell them we sent you at CDM, and he'll definitely take care of you. But protect your portfolio because you really need to. It's coming. Thank you.
Welcome back to the SCIF. I've told you that Armenia is very important as far as the first Christian country. It was Christianized in 300 or 301 AD by St. Gregory, and we're going to be visiting the St. Gregory Church here in Yerevan, the cathedral here in Yerevan, at some point during this trip. It's a newer cathedral. The oldest cathedral of Christianity is in Etchmiadzin. I think I said that correctly, here, right outside of Yerevan. We're going to go there and bring you that fantastic view of that church sometime while our trip is going on here, and we'll get you a lot of information and video on that. But in the meantime, I just want to point out something that we put out yesterday, and it's on our Eastern European site, tsarism.com. You can go there and find everything about the former Soviet Union. Prime Minister Nikol Pashinyan targets the Armenian Apostolic Church, similar to actions against Christianity in Ukraine. We have been very vocal about what is going on in Ukraine. And if you scroll down in the article, we have our latest interview with Bob Amsterdam in London, who is the attorney for the Ukrainian Orthodox Church, and what the Zelenskiy regime is doing against that church. This is a global problem, however. Globalism is the leader. Zelenskiy is a puppet, as is Pashinyan here in Armenia. This is the cathedral we're going to visit in Etchmiadzin, and we'll be getting that to you live. And that is the first Christian cathedral ever in the world. It survived the Soviet Union, and it survived the invasion by the Persians, and absolutely stunningly beautiful. And we're going to be bringing you that. This is Kalothakis Karakin, who is the head of the Armenian Apostolic Church. I'm sure I butchered the name, but the government here in Armenia is attacking the Armenian Apostolic Church, very similar to what they're doing in Ukraine and also in Romania, as we mentioned, and we're going to be bringing you more on that down the road as we focus on the persecution of Christianity globally. It's the only religion you can hate and kill and maim and murder, and it's okay. You can't do that to the Jewish faith or Islam or Buddhism or whatever, but you can. It's fine with Christianity, according to the globalists, and that makes you wonder what's the threat that Christianity poses? Good question to think about yourself. But the government here in Armenia is going after this group and the church itself. This is the prime minister. This is an AI generated video or image of the Armenian Prime Minister Nikol Pashinyan closing the churches. He is trying to replace the church and is arresting the priests, and has put together a dossier on the head of the Armenian Apostolic Church, very similar to the Russia dossier on Trump. And he's trying to remove him from the head of the church and create a state church, just like they did in Ukraine and just like they have in the Chinese Communist Party, where they have icons of communist revolutions instead of Jesus Christ. So this is what is happening in Yerevan. I talked with many people here on the ground already. We've only been here about 36 hours, but I talked to one taxi driver who said everything Pashinyan does leads to the collapse of Armenia. He's very anti-Christian, very anti-diaspora of the Armenian people who are spread around the world. He has changed the constitution, the national anthem, and he even did an interview recently with another mountain besides Ararat, Mount Ararat, which is now in Turkey. It was in the old geographic area of Armenia, and that is the focus of the Armenian people. And he changed the mountain. It's like changing Mount Rushmore for the Americans and saying, this is what we're going to, value now. And so Pashinyan is working against the people. And that is obvious. So we're going to stay on this story. It's really, really, really important. And it is something that I want you to understand as to what is happening in Armenia. So you can find this story on tsarism.com. Check it out as to what's happening here in country. Now, another story, which you can find on tsarism.com, which we put up yesterday as well, is the protests against Volodymyr Zelenskiy in Ukraine. These protests we don't believe are organic. We believe they are, and you saw them in the cold open, several videos of that. We believe they are created by the color revolution matrix, if you will, and possibly controlled by Trump now, the blob, if you will, which we call them, the national security apparatus of the U.S. state. And we think that they have decided Zelensky has to go. These protests are not organic. This just doesn't happen like this with everybody with the same candles out there, and and singing the same songs and spontaneously happening around the country. This is the blob wants Zelensky gone, possibly because he's too corrupt, possibly because there's too much pressure on him now, possibly because Trump wants peace and Zelensky's in the way. But that is the story there. I met with the National Anti-Corruption Bureau in 2015 in Kiev and met with Artem Sitnik, the head of that bureau. Recently, or right after that, in 2016, they put out the information against Paul Manafort that caused him to be removed as the head of the Trump campaign. It was the black book entries that were allegedly where Manafort was taking private money from Yanukovych and others. And I called the head of the comms department that I had just met with at NABU, the National Anti-Corruption Bureau in Ukraine. I said, "What's going on?" And they said, "Well, that black book entry stuff we just got off the internet, and we don't know if it's real or not." So this was created, and then later, you can find all this in the article. Later, that basically the whole operation against President Trump was coming out of Ukraine. And so it was against Bernie Sanders first, but then against Trump. And Artem Sitnik at NABU was working against Trump and helping Hillary Clinton. That's in the article too. So all of this is what you need to understand is this apparatus has now been turned on Zelensky. He realizes that. And so he's trying to shut them down. And these inorganic protests are popping up all around the country. It's not organic, and it is blob operated, if you will. And so we'll see where this goes, but possibly Trump has decided to get rid of Zelensky from the inside, which is what they can do in Iran, by the way. We've talked a lot about that, and just let me highlight real quick my book, the MEK, Paying the Price, The Untold Story of the Iranian Resistance. This can remove the regime from the inside without a war. We've been talking, they can do this if they want. They can support these people and the regime will come down, but for some reason they don't want to. And you can find this book at historyofbooks.com. They have signed copies of Paying the Price, The Untold Story of the Iranian Resistance for our audio audience, and learn about what is happening in Iran and what could happen in Iran other than war. So that's that. There's one more story I want to tell you before we go into our interview with Thierry Laurent, and that is what is happening in Florida. We have been all over the Florida Republican Party, the RPOF, Republican Party of Florida, and the nefarious actions they've done against Republicans. Why is that? If you go to the Miami Independent, miamiindependent.com, you can see this story, another in a long line of Florida RPOF attacking yet another Republican group. The RPOF is not Republican. They are tyrannical. And they are not working for the people of Florida. Florida is not the gold standard in elections. DeSantis is running an election fraud cartel in Florida, and the RPOF is playing along with that and also keeping grassroots out of the party and out of power, and therefore unable to right the ship in Florida and in other states. This is what is happening all over the world. But we're going to continue to bring it to you. We're going to take another break here, and then we're going to get into our interview with Thierry Laurent on what's happening in France and with Brigitte Macron suing Candace Owens. Huge story there. Is Brigitte Macron a man or not? Candace says she's a man. So stay with us. We'll be right back.
Watching my friends gain more and more weight. And then eventually, I got to tell you, this is a little dark, but bad diet literally killed my whole crew.
Wow.
Diabetes, a stroke. I mean, all kinds of stuff. It's like, you had a stroke? You're not even 50 years old. You guys got to quit eating this stuff. Your body knows what's what. You are not conscious of this. But that's why people will go to the refrigerator and they'll grab this and that and the other and put together this outrageously elaborate combination of foods. Your body's trying to reach balance. Unbeknownst to us, our bodies are always trying to reach homeostasis. You can't eat all of this stuff and expect to live a long time. And one thing led to another, and I went, forget this. We're going to make our own product. So we partnered with a one of the world's top 3 biochemists where nutrition specific study is concerned. I said, all I want is the best nutritional and immune support product in the world. So we mixed it in yogurt. It's a powder. I got a bag of it here. I keep one on the console all the time, just so I can show people.
Yeah.
And it's a powder. Now, this is not candy. This is hardcore nutrition, and sugar is an enemy. And most people do not know that the reason these bellies are showing up on people all over the place, your body makes fat to store the toxins it can't get rid of. So it just puts them over here. But I can tell you this, you take this for 30 days and then lay off of it for 2 or 3 days, and you'll go, good grief, give me some more. Skin, nails, hair growing back. Cut yourself and it heals in half the time.
I'm David Cross, and you may know me from my election integrity work, but I also own U.S. Asset Management, an investment advisory practice. I've been an advisor for nearly 30 years, and one of the questions I get asked most frequently is, do I have enough money relative to other people my age? And while that's an interesting question, it's also the wrong question. The right question is do you have enough money to sustain your lifestyle for the rest of your life? This is a question you should know the answer to. This is what we do. Check us out at us-am.com and look for our big proud American Eagle logo.
We're slogging over Africa. Foot, slogging over Africa. Boot, moving up and down again. There's no discharge in the war. 7, 6, 11.
I am reporting directly from Yerevan, Armenia, but I have my good friend from France, Thierry Laurent, with us, a geopolitical analyst, intelligence analyst. Thierry, thank you for your time. A lot going on in France, and I wanted to contact you and find out what's happening.
Oh, yes, a lot is going on in France. Since the clash I had with the minister, I have been interviewed by major politicians. They wanted to understand what was going on, and the polemic is inflating at the point that this clash has been spreading all over internet and got something like 3 million views. So you can imagine, in fact, the impact it has. And actually, one of the senators that I know extremely well, Mr. Yves Pozzo di Borgo, have been even spreading this stuff over internet, and this is making a big buzz. It's incredible.
Wow.
Since then, I was supposed, in fact, to attend a meeting over risk assessments in Europe with a major executive next week in London, organized by the organization units, which is led by Deputy Brigitte, an Indian citizen living in England. And I went to vacation during 2 days, and when I came back, my house was open, and my passport has been disappearing. So basically, certainly I'm facing some opposition to make sure that I will not operate whatsoever I need, in fact, to do. What is very surprising here is that this is in a context of a lot of suicided people. And I'm going to explain. Within the Department of Ministry of Economy and Finance, we have been hearing last week within a major newspaper, Le Monde, that 20 people got suicided.
Wow.
20 people getting suicided in 6 months within the Ministry of Economy. What is going on here? This is extremely strange, that there might be 1 or 2 or 3 that can happen, but 20, it is not a trend. This is a phenomenon that is supernatural,
Yes.
And what I suspect is that some of them might be pushed or executed because certainly they don't want those people to spread the news of what the administration of Macron has been doing on a financial point of view. So basically, this guy is just cleaning the ground because the end of his mandate will be in 2 years. And therefore, he will be entitled of lawsuit if he has people that are able to say what he has been doing on a financial point of view. You can imagine, in fact, what is going to be the scandal. On top of it, you remember I was quoting the disappearance of Eric Denessé. He used to be a Marine intel, okay? And he was running a think tank of economic intelligence. I had a lot of talk with Mr. Denessé, and we were supposed, in fact, to set up a TV show. The last interview he had with a TVR, which is like a major channel on the web, he was criticizing the policy of Macron regarding Ukraine, and he was raising the fact that negotiation will be extremely difficult because as there is the rise of Nazism in Ukraine, all this group that has been constituted and that has been growing over time after the Maidan coup are becoming extremely dangerous. And those guys, they will never accept that the conflict will be stopping. So basically, this video has been making an enormous buzz. And as he was a part of our, he was a former Secret Services, DGSE, you can imagine that this guy had a major audience and a major credibility. Actually, I was one of the first discussing with Mr. Denessé in 2015 when I came back from Ukraine after living there 10 years and escalating a certain numbers of information of whoever would be necessary to neutralize in the way that the situation that we are living today will not occur. But unfortunately, within the government, nobody was listening. And that was a major problem. His disappearance is, they are calling this a suicide, but there is another problem. The former heads of DGSE, Mr. Alain Juillet, has been saying that information was escalating to him, that there was no footprint on the gun he is supposed to use for killing himself, and he had no gloves. How can you shoot yourself without leaving any footprints on a gun that is supposed to have killed you? It's impossible. So yesterday I went to the police station and I have been reporting this in the way that the Procurer of the Republic will open a real investigation, and this case will be digged into in the way that justice will be on the table. Because it seems to me that right now in France, our political and judicial system is becoming a banana republic. It is like what is happening in Ukraine for the last 10 years, you know?
Yes. It's very similar.
Yeah, they were setting up the coup of Maidan because it was supposed, in fact, to go against the corruption. Corruption under Yanukovych, where it was kind of not that substantial. It was like a phenomenon, except with the banks, because most of the oligarchs, they were controlling the banks. And when the funding were coming from USA or from Europe, the money was disappearing. Right now, it has been ignited to a scale that nobody can imagine. Most of the funds that has been sent, you can be ensured that for the last 3 years, 30% of it has been disappearing. It is an outrage. And what we are seeing right now with the fact that Zelenskiy want to minimize the capacity of the NABU, which is an organization, to chase the corruption, to operate, then we are going to witness a new Maidan. And this is what I was saying in my book, at the conclusion of my book that I closed 3 years ago. I say, be careful.
Let me just say something there, because I met with Artem Sitnik in Kiev in 2015, I believe. when NABU was established. And that is a Soros-run organization or State Department-run organization to prevent corruption from being exposed under the Ukrainian government. I think today it's being unleashed on Zelenskiy because I think Trump wants Zelenskiy gone. And I think they are outing this corruption to get him gone. And he sees this and is stopping it. What say you?
Well, I can understand the political means that are hiding behind the curtain. Nevertheless, it would have been happening sooner or later.
Yeah.
Because the corruption has been going to a level that is just insane. On top of it, the population is seeing that their level of living is just collapsing. The economy is crashing because everything in Ukraine was artificial. If you look at the evolution of the GDP of Ukraine, you see that all the countries in 2021 GDPs is completely crashing because there was no economy. Everybody was in lockdown. If you look at the GDP of Ukraine, you see that it has been doubling since the Maidan. What does it mean? It means that the funding was rushing into Ukraine, but that was artificial. Because if you're receiving funding like this and you integrate it directly into the GDP, this is not the economic throughput that you are measuring. This is just artificial things, and it shows you at which point the country has been corrupted to the bone because the money is disappearing. We see the economy that is just collapsing, people in a level of poverty that is absolutely disgusting. And therefore, whatsoever would be happening on the political point of view or on the battle point of view, at a point in time, this story of a third Maidan, because this is number 3, would be happening. And this is what we are witnessing. On top of it, people start to realize that there is no more freedom of the press, freedom of religion. And talking about religion, you know exactly what is happening in Armenia. This is the plan of Europe. They are trying, in fact, to ignite a lot of fire everywhere. They want to erase the notion of religion. They want to erase the notion of culture, of identity, of language, in the way that at the end, they will transform the full European bloc, including Central Asia, into a sort of consumer area and to frame Russia to attack after that China. This is the World Economic Forum that is operating. But what we are witnessing right now is the consciousness of the population that are just raising, understanding what is beneath the curtains, and they are refusing what is their plan, in fact, to control the population. Because
let me just throw this article up just on that point. We published this last night on our Eastern European site that what is going on in Ukraine, they are doing the same thing in Armenia as in destroying the church structure that has been in place for 1,000 years or longer. This is a 2,000-year-old church. Since 301, it was established. This is the first Christian cathedral in Armenia, and they're arresting the priests and putting them in jail and taking power away from the church. And that is what's going on here, just like in Ukraine and Romania, I am hearing. So back to you.
Well, they are attacking the religion that is, in fact, one of the major structure of the society. But you cannot control what people are believing or not. They want, in fact, to replace God by whatsoever new entity, wokeism or whatsoever, you know. But as soon as you are attacking these kind of things, this is the soul of people that you are attacking. And they will never accept you, in fact, to control. Look at what has been happening in USSR. They were just, the Bolshevik has been trying, in fact, to kill the orthodoxy. And at the end of the story, in fact, 100 years after that, the orthodoxy is becoming very, very strong, because this is something that people need, in fact, to live. They need to believe that they are supreme human beings with something that makes them differentiating themselves of animals, you see? So basically, as soon as you try to touch this, you are dead meat. It's finished. And you know what is happening right now in Europe is a sort of rebirth of consciousness. And there is a new movement that is raising right now in France that goes against the government. And the 10th of September, there is a major call to the French population to stop the country. And this movement is a sort of second yellow jacket, but this time it's going to be very different, because people are saying that their buying power has been completely collapsing, and the government of Bayrou, which is the second government after the dissolution of the parliament, is trying, in fact, to raise $45 billion by raising, in fact, the taxes, when we are the country that is paying the more tax in the world.
Yeah.
And people are saying, whoa, 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 what are you doing here? We are paying an amount of tax that is absolutely gigantic. Our services in France, and especially hospitals, are collapsing completely. And you are telling us that you want to raise the tax. You want us to make effort when you are not shrinking. In fact, you're spending, and you are increasing the budget of the government, and you want to send another $3.5 billion to Ukraine. What is the story? Everywhere I go, everywhere I'm speaking with people, they all want to get rid of Macron. So basically, this guy has absolutely no legitimacy, in fact, to run the country. The last poll that was made by a major statistic organization, he came out with 18%. 18%, I am sure that they have been tweaking the numbers.
Those are just the people that are making money off this system and don't want it to end, right?
Exactly, but 18%, where is your credibility?
Celebrate our newest launch, Rev 7. I'm bringing you an amazing introductory offer, plus an exclusive overstock sale that you're not going to want to miss. Rev 7 is our premium energy drink that tastes great and gives you energy all day with no jitters and no crashes. That's because there's no sugar and no caffeine. I'm so sure you're going to love Rev 7 that for a limited time you can try our 3-pack absolutely free. Or check out our Percale bed sheets. I can't believe I'm even going to say this. Every color, every style, every size, only $29.88. So go to mypillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to save 20% on our Rev 7 12-packs or try our introductory 3-pack absolutely free. And our Percale bed sheets, all sizes only $29.88, even the queens and kings. Inventory is extremely limited, so order now.
Pandemic, we can never be caught unprepared again. And so many Americans, when COVID hit, they had nothing in the house. Stores were shut down, and doctors' offices were shut down. And even if doctors prescribed drugs, hydroxychloroquine, ivermectin, pharmacists wouldn't fill the prescriptions. That was a nightmare.
Now the situation is much worse. We have these horrible supply chain problems. In our emergency medical kit at the Wellness Company, we have 8 prescription drugs that are all potentially life-saving.
Most people who died with COVID, they died in the hospital because they didn't receive early treatment.
Every American family should have one of these.
I can tell you the Wellness Company kit is the answer.
When Johnny comes marching home again, hurrah, hurrah, we'll give him a hearty welcome then, hurrah, hurrah, all the men will cheer the ladies, they will all turn out and will all.
You see? And I do believe that they have been doubling the numbers, because everywhere I go and I speak with people, people are hungry like I've never seen before, you know? If you look at the restaurant right now, you look at the Galleria. I was in a ski resort because I had a major knee problem and I had to see a doctor there. You are looking at the resort, it's empty. This is the first time in 20 years that I go there that I see the parking lots, they are completely empty during summertime, because mountaineers with ski resorts, they have been developing a lot of summer activities. So therefore, people that want to get to run away from the heat, what they do, they go to the mountain, in fact, to get some fresh air. Here, this year, in the middle of the summer, the resort is like a ghost city. I have never seen this before. What does it mean? It means that people, they are so scared, they don't want to go to vacation because the uncertainty of economy is such that, in fact, they want to keep the saving to make sure that they will be having a living if there is a problem. It means also that their buying power has been crashing completely, and they cannot afford, in fact, to go to vacation, because on top of it, we have such an inflation that the pricing of food in the resort is just skyrocketing. In the cities, in the plain, the prices are just like insane. But when you go to mountain, where you have, in fact, to ship and to bear the cost of the altitude, because to go there, you know, you burn a lot of energy. In fact, the prices are just crazy. This is unbelievable. I went to a supermarket. When I saw the prices, I'm like, whoa, guys, what is going on here? You know, how do you want, in fact, people not even to go to a restaurant, but to supermarket to buy the food in the way that they can cook for themselves? It's impossible. So basically, this new Yellow Jacket story that is going to ignite, if I remember well, this is on the 10th of September, is going to be major, because the government having no credibility right now, people are going to make a blast to make sure that this government is going to be kicked out. What we are suspecting is that Macron is waiting for this to trigger the Article 16 of our Constitution to take full power. Because don't forget one thing, his plan is about to federalize Europe. And he do agree with Stammer and Merz to proceed so. But besides this, what is very surprising is that Stammer is just participating to this masquerade because he's off for Europe. UK has been exiting, so therefore they are not part of European Union. But
he wants them back, though.
Yeah, exactly. But they have a lot of interest in Ukraine because they are controlling most of the business there. And that is the reason why the MI6 is so active in Ukraine, because they don't want Russia, in fact, to take over. So basically, their plan is about to make the people extremely scared about what is happening and saying, oh, look, we are going to be invaded by Russia. What is this joke? You remember that during the Second World War, at the beginning in 1939, the German army was something like 5.3 million people. In 1944, the German army was constituted of 11.2 or 0.3 million people. And those guys were able, in fact, to invade Europe. It is not with 350,000 people that you are going to invade Europe. This is an operation that is located in Ukraine, and Vladimir Putin has absolutely no means, in fact, to go to Europe. This is bullshit. But they are using this fear to make sure that people will believe them. But the more it goes, the more people are not believing this bullshit, you know?
Well, on that note, we had a big development yesterday that Brigitte Macron has sued Candace Owens over her whatever you want to call it, an outing of Brigitte's actual identity. What do you say about this?
I think it's the diversion. It's a diversion in regard of the fact that the economy is collapsing, that in Ukraine they cannot face up, in fact, Russia, because the mechanism that has been set up there is such that it will not happen. They do not have any military capacity, industrial military capacity. And actually, in fact, our chief army officer has been resigning yesterday. What does it mean? Burka has been saying, okay, bye-bye, I give up. Because he was obliged, in fact, to give a speech on TV to credibilize the policy that Macron want to put together to push the population for a major conflict with Russia. This is crazy. Because this guy haven't been understanding what Oreshnik means. You see? So
yes,
basically,
the missile, yes.
He was like, wow, I have fire in the kitchen, everywhere, in the living room, in the bedroom. What should I do? Oh, Brigitte, go and try to make sure that, in fact, people are going to focus on this story. Now, I have a lot of things to say about that. End of May 2025, meaning 2 months ago, one of the former minister of Macron, because, Macron is using minister like sponge. He's cleaning the table, cleaning the toilet, and then throw in the can. Marlène Schiappa was on BFM TV, a channel that is owned by the CEO of CMA CGM, the logistic operator in the world, which is a very big company. And she said in front of journalists, this is a shame. Can you believe that they are spoiling the memory of this poor Jean-Michel Trogneux that died and this and that? And the journalist is like, what are you talking about? Jean-Michel Trogneux died? Yes, he died a year ago and nobody is taking care of his memory and everybody is insulting with this complotist journalist in the US and this and that. And journalist is like, can you explain me how come this Jean-Michel Trogneux is appealing to court of cassation, which is a sort of Supreme Court in France, cassation, okay? How he can appeal to cassation court when he's dead? How this is possible?
Only in France, my friend.
And suddenly she's in a panic mode because you know that one of the journalists, Natasha Ray, was sued by the Macron. And yes. Natasha Ray, lawyer, has been appealing to court. And during the appeal, she has been winning against the Macron. So basically, she's off lawsuit. And she don't have, in fact, to pay for the fees and this and that. So basically, the Macron has been appealing to the Supreme Court mechanism. And they have been sending this minister, in fact, to try to ignite a counterfire in the way that this story will be completely confusing. But she was not expecting that the journalist is raising, in fact, this fact. So she's in a panic mode, and they have been shutting down completely the show immediately.
So how does this work in the court in the U.S. suing someone like that with open discovery? So you could look at her entire life. You could find out that the first 30 years of her life are reportedly don't exist. So how does it work in France?
Well, I don't know where the lawsuit is going to be set up. If it is set up, because to sue a foreigner that is not living on the territory, this is going to be very difficult because you will ask for the government of this country, in fact, to expel the citizen, and United States is not going to do that. If they
I think it was filed in Delaware, actually, so maybe in a U.S. court, which makes it interesting.
This is going to be very, very interesting then.
Yes.
And I am going to explain you why. If I was Candace Owens' lawyer, I would say, okay, they sue me. I like it so much. Now, my lawyer is going to ask to the judge to organize a DNA analysis under the scrutiny of the police, in the way that the sample that is going to be punctured is not going to disappear or go somewhere else that nobody wants. And then we will be fixed. Because actually, I'm going to tell you something. If the Macron, they wanted, in fact, to stop this crazy story, what they would have been doing? To put Jean-Michel Trogneux and Brigitte Macron on a show on TV at 8 o'clock in the way that everybody is seeing the two person.
Yes,
Why they don't
exactly.
do that?
Yes.
Why they haven't been showing up during the prosecution of Natasha Ray? They would have been doing this, end of the story. They would have been showing up, both of them, in the court during the prosecution of the journalist, end of the story. Why they don't do that? Because they cannot. If they cannot, this is because this is the same person. And you know, we have a lot of problems with Algeria because there is a lot of criminals coming from this country that are operating major attacks over our citizens. It's 150 attacks with knives every day. 150 every day. And the Minister of Justice is not able to expel those people because Algeria need, in fact, to sign up a very specific court order to reaccept those citizens within the country. And they don't want to do it. So basically, the government of Algeria is just saying, Macron, we do whatsoever we want. You are going to keep this criminal. We don't care. And those guys, they are illegal on our territory. It's called OQTF status. They need to be kicked out. But without this court order, they cannot do it. And it has to come from Algeria. So basically, what is very funny in this story is we need to understand and to go backward in the history to understand what is going on here. Brigitte Macron and Emmanuel, when they came to an official visit in Algeria several years ago at the beginning of the mandate, she said, or he, we don't know, oh, I have been studying in this university, meaning the University of Alger. And the dean of the university, hearing this, what he did? Going in the record of the university. And he has been coming out with a statement within an interview on the Algerian television, saying, this is very strange. We don't have any Brigitte Trogneux that has been recording and studying into our university. But we have somebody called Jean-Michel Trogneux. Because when you are hiding such a lie over time, at a point in time, you are going to make a mistake. It is so big that you cannot hide too long to too many people whatsoever is your own story. And this is a major case of blackmail of government. If Macron was releasing his real life to the public, never, ever, he would have been elected. Because French people, they would never accept that such an individual with such a representation on a family point of view, if I can call this family, would be elected at the heads of the country because he is not representing whoever we are. People in France are pretty much traditional, despite the fact that the society has been evolving. But honestly speaking, you see yourself represented with a guy living with another guy with a wig and a pair of orange into the bra? No.
Yeah.
It is like a nonsense. And actually, you're laughing, but look at a bunch of pictures of Brigitte, Jean-Michel Trogneux, Macron. Sometimes you have the breast like this, sometimes like that. What the hell is going on here, you know? When there are some pictures on the beach, there is no breast at all. When she's dressing up, in fact, for receptions, officials, and so on, she has like enormous boobs. Where they are coming from?
Yeah.
You know? Is it like inflatable? I don't know.
It's amazing. It's amazing. Thierry, I just want to point out your book. It is Ukraine, A Warning to the World. It's available at historyofbooks.com or anywhere books are sold. And this book is selling a lot. So people are waking up as to what is actually happening in Ukraine. But what else do you want to get out to the public today?
Well, if people really want to understand how we have been ending into this very dangerous and critical situation, they need to understand the history of this country. They need to understand the demographic and how it has been constituted. It is a geopolitical puzzle. And geopolitical puzzle at a point in time is just collapsing. Look at what has been happening in Yugoslavia. Mm-hmm. It has been collapsing due to difference of culture, difference of religion, and so on. And on top of it, because the West wanted to fragment completely this gigantic country to make sure they will be controlling it by financing the small blocks. So this is what I was saying actually to journalists in Croatia. I say, guys, I'm sorry, but what has been happening to Yugoslavia is exactly what is happening in Ukraine. It is collapsing because it was constituted over time with entities that could not live together. And if you do not want to come back to whatsoever was Yugoslavia, you need to accept what is happening in Ukraine, because this is the will of population, in fact, to live the way they want to live.
And not be forced into a major war where their country's depopulated.
Yeah, because initially, if you look at the history of Ukraine, you will understand that the south of Ukraine was belonging to Russia. The Donbass was belonging to Russia. Crimea was belonging to Russia. And what is going on right now is those populations, they are saying, we are Russian and we want to continue to be Russian. And actually, you know, Ukraine never been existing in history. It was always an oblast of Russia, meaning a region. It's like Texas. It would be like Texas for United States. Do you see yourself splitting Texas from the United States?
No.
Because this is the same culture. Because this is the same language. You see? Americans are Americans. But in Ukraine, it's different. You see? You have different ethnies. And those ethnies right now, because one wanted to dominate when it was a minority, the majority haven't been accepting it. So basically the minority has been trying, in fact, to take over by violence, by killing, by whatsoever those neo-Nazi groups have been operating during 10 years. And now the story is just coming to an end, where at the end of the story, there will be splitting, end of the story. And actually, this is a big mistake. It's an enormous mistake on a social point of view. Why? Because if you look at the imbrication of the families between Ukraine and Russia, you will see that you haven't got a Ukrainian that doesn't have any family in Russia. I was in the office of a minister of Vladimir Putin, and he used to be his personal economic advisor, Mr. Sergei Gladyev. You know where he was born? Zaporozhye, Ukraine. Yeah. So basically, a Ukrainian guy that has been studying in Moscow is now a minister of Vladimir Putin. His economic advisor, Mr. Takchuk, is from the same region of Zaporozhye. So basically, if you look at the demography in Russia now, you have 10 million people coming from Ukraine living there. So if Russia is the enemy, how come 10 million people are living in Russia? Yeah. You know, this narrative that has been built over time by the Western media is completely out of date, and it's a full lie. They have been built up this story in the way that people will be accepting that the conflict was fair and that Europe and the United States would be supporting it. But when you open your eyes and you look at what is on the ground and what is really happening, you understand that the entire story was made up. But a made up story that can end up into a nuclear conflict. And this story has to stop. Donald Trump wanted to stop it, but he didn't put the right people in charge to make sure this is happening. And actually, if one of your people within your government wants so, I can help them out, in fact, to make sure that we will be stopping this stuff. But they need the knowledge.
Did you see, we reported this week that the Trump's envoy to Ukraine, General Keith Kellogg, his daughter runs a big NGO in Ukraine that profits off the war continuing. So big conflict of interest.
Here we go. Another story of money. So basically, because the financial means of a very small minority that has an interest to make a maximum of money, they have been sacrificing an entire population. They should be ashamed of themselves. And Kellogg needs to understand something clearly. And this is a message that I'm delivering to him. The Cold War need was completely stopping, and what you are doing here is reigniting it. And this is not for the benefits of everybody, and especially in the United States, because in the world where all the economies are completely intricated, if there is like a grain of sand within the wheels, what is going to happen? All the economies are going to collapse. And actually, the Biden government has been pushing for de-dollarization because Russia did not have the choice. They were cut off the SWIFT. You know, you cannot use something if the people that are emitting your the currency is just forbidding you, in fact, to use it. You know, you are forced, in fact, to find another solution. So basically, Biden has been shooting the US economy in the heads at the point that the debt of America is not going to be supported. Look at what's happening in Japan. Brigitte has been calling, in fact, the president of the Federal Bank in Japan, saying, are you going to buy our debt? And the guy say, no, because we cannot raise for ourselves. China is doing exactly the same thing. They are getting rid of the debt as soon as it's maturing, and they are not renewing it. So therefore, who has been killing himself in this story? This is Biden that has been shooting the US economy in the head because nobody wants to use the dollar. So, and this is something that I was raising as a major issue to General Vallely in a conversation in April 2022. I say, Paul, you know, what is going on here is the end of the US hegemony and the end of the US economy. And what is going to happen in the next 3 to 4 years? Nobody's ready for this. And if you look at all the indexes of the US economy right now, I've been making a major study about it. This is very scary. This is really, really scary.
Well, and that's a whole nother show, Thierry. I'm kind of out of time here for this segment.
Oh, okay.
But what is it? How do people follow you, and what's your last comments?
Oh, you need to go to Global Geopol channel on YouTube, or you need to go on Global Geopol on Telegram, and you will see all the news that I'm posting every day.
Thank you very much, my friend. Always interesting. And I wanted to get the update on Macron and Brigitte. This is going to be interesting to watch.
Oh, this is going to be even more interesting for us, because if those people are getting debunked, you can imagine the scandal this is going to trigger, because people will realize that the French government is getting blackmailed because of the personal situation of an individual that has been hiding whoever he is. And at the end of the story, whatsoever he's going to try to put together as policy is going to be rejected. And especially if this guy has in mind, in fact, to trigger the Article 16, the 10th of September, he is going to understand what the French people are about. And these kind of things, you cannot stop it. Voilà.
Thierry, thank you very much. We'll have you back soon. Take care.
Thank you very much, Todd.
I'm a naturopathic doctor. We are in the world of medicine very acquainted with many modalities, but probably the one most familiar with everybody would be two things. homeopathy and herbs, maybe some nutrients too, vitamins, minerals, that kind of thing. Now, we do know a lot about the drugs because we have to find out what drug you're taking affects you and what nutrient it depletes you of, because most every drug pharmacy product will deplete something. So we have been trained and we have a database that we can check into that says this is going to take your B12 away. The pharmaceutical company cannot patent organic substances made by the body. You're not born short of Advil. You're not born short of Ritalin.
Yeah.
You can be born short of insulin, right? Mm-hmm. The answers to staying healthy and keeping away from even SARS or any of those things getting into you is staying healthy.
Mm-hmm.
You and I get sick because our terrain gets out of balance. Well, that's the same thing in the soil. You and I are made from this thing called dirt. And when we get out of balance, we have the same thing happen. Weeds start to grow in our body. Right? And that's what we want in our body. We want nutrients that we don't understand how to get well enough yet because our suppliers are lacking knowledge and nutrient density foods.
So this is what drove you to develop this, was your knowledge of this, right?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
You know that.
I'm excited to announce that we're having a huge sale on overstock and brand new products. For example, My Pillow Percale bed sheets, every color, every style, every size, only $29.88. Our Percale bed sheets are breathable, cool and crisp, and they're perfect for spring and summer. And check out Rev 7, the next generation of energy drinks. It tastes great, and it gives you energy all day with no jitters and no crashes. Best of all, it's actually good for you. And for a limited time, try our 3-pack absolutely free. So go to mypillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to save 20% on our Rev 7 12-packs, or try our introductory 3-pack absolutely free. And our Percale bed sheets, all sizes, only $29.88. Twin size, full size, queen size, king sizes, all $29.88. Inventory is extremely limited at this price, so order now.
Hope you enjoyed my good friend Thierry Laurent. He's fantastic as to what's happening in France, and the Brigitte Macron story is not going away. Another story that's not going away is what's happening in Georgia with the Georgia GOP, the corruption there, and the Obama-Trump conflict now coming out into the open with Tulsi Gabbard and her revelations on Obama running a big conspiracy. So Bill Quinn had a great review of all this last night on the Georgia show. I'm going to play that, and I think you'll really get an insight as to what's happening in D.C. and also in the Georgia GOP. So stand by. Here we go.
We're going to talk about several topics tonight. We're going to delve into some of the edgy stuff. I'm going to ask that you take a deep breath, and we're going to try to educate you a little bit on some of the things that we're observing, some of which we're going to hold back any conclusions on, but we're going to offer the data and tell you a little bit of background that you may not already have regarding what's going on, because we believe that as we sit here tonight, we are living through a very important time in American history. We just this week have seen a former president that appears to now have evidence against him suggesting potential treason and a potential, I'll call it a coup attempt against President Trump during the early time of his first administration. We've seen the release of 230,000 documents associated with Martin Luther King just in the last couple of days. Again, another piece of American history that's been hidden away from the public eye now for decades. and is only now being released. And so between that, some of the things that Trump is saying, some of the things that Tulsi Gabbard and others are saying, we believe this is a very critical time to make sure that you are paying attention. And I think you're going to find that you need to pay attention to multiple parties. In the past, we've talked about truth sayers, if you will, folks like Tucker Carlson, Alex Jones, and others. All of a sudden, there seem to be new players in the truth sayer ranks. Tulsi Gabbard is a key one. RFK Jr. has been a key one in past months. And so now we look back and we can tell that we are beginning to learn many of the things that have been hidden from us for, as I said, decades. And so the more that we learn, the better off you are able to deal with even more as it comes out, and we believe it will. So quickly, let's go through a quick recap of what happened in the last few days for those that haven't seen or haven't been able to keep up, and let's talk about that. So earlier in the week and last week, Tulsi Gabbard brought out information that showed that within the Obama administration, in the days following the 2016 election, there was an effort to take what the intelligence community had been reporting was interest but no real interference from Russia, and change that reporting, change that story into something much more nefarious. Basically, according to the New York Post reporting, the Obama administration whipped up Russia investigation in what they call a treasonous conspiracy, and that's in using, I believe, Tulsi Gabbard's language. Here's more. It really is, and this is something reposted by Donald J. Trump himself. It was manufactured intelligence created in order to try to put doubt in the American people's minds about Trump's validity, both as a president and validity as, interested in the best interest of the American public. So just an incredible disclosure. What's interesting now is after those first few days when this came out, Obama's team, I guess we'll call it, actually responded to this. And so let's start with the response that they came out with, and then we'll talk about what's happened in the hours and days since that happened. So let's bring this up.
To the presidency, our office does not normally dignify the constant nonsense and misinformation flowing out of this White House with a response. But these claims are outrageous enough to merit one. These bizarre allegations are ridiculous and a weak attempt at distraction. Nothing in the document issued last week undercuts the widely accepted conclusion that Russia worked to influence the 2016 presidential election, but did not successfully manipulate any votes. These findings were affirmed in a 2020 report by the bipartisan Senate Intelligence Committee, led by then Chairman Marco Rubio. That comes from Patrick Rodenbush in President Obama's office.
We're going to come back to that in just a couple of minutes. We're going to go on to further reporting between Laura Trump and Tulsi Gabbard. But it is important to understand that they were very quickly trying to change the American public's understanding of what's happened. This is a schematic of actually what was done. So leading up to the 2016 election, the intelligence community was watching Russia and was watching what they appeared to be trying to do. And ultimately, I think they found that they had purchased some advertising, perhaps on Facebook or something else. But the intelligence community determined prior to the election that, in fact, they didn't have really the capability to do anything to truly interfere with American elections. That was reported up to the election and was due to be reported on December 7th, just following the 2016 election. That intel report was squashed, and in its place, they held a meeting on December 9th in which a team of people led by, now we understand, President Obama, were put together in order to manufacture a story which would lead to concerns about the validity of Trump's election, the validity of Trump himself. And so you can understand that this was more than a hoax. This was an actual plan. They held a meeting. The people were invited to a meeting, and here is a summary of some of the conclusions released as part of Tulsi Gabbard's release. Here's some of the people that attended. Names that we see again and again and again: Susan Rice, Andrew McCabe, James Clapper, John Brennan, Victoria Nuland, Loretta Lynch, General Dunford, and others. And so, this is a very, an unbelievably concerning circumstance. And here's a picture in that time frame. And boy, you can tell these people do not look very happy, do they? So in the following days now, we've seen some very interesting things. Let's hear first about Laura Trump and Tulsi Gabbard picking apart Obama's team's statement regarding Tulsi's original release.
To what we heard from former President Obama there. He's saying that none of this makes any sense, that this is a distraction. What do you say to that?
It's the art of deflection coming from former President Obama, as well as his friends who are still in Congress today, and Senator Warner and Congressman Jim Himes, really all basically saying that exact same statement, which doesn't actually address the issue that was revealed in great detail in the over 100 documents that we released last week, and the documents that we will be releasing later this week, that point to the undeniable fact that you laid out in your introduction to this segment, is that the intelligence community had one assessment, that Russia did not have the intent or capability to try to impact the outcome of the U.S. election leading up to Election Day. The same assessment was made after Donald Trump was elected by the American people as president in 2016, defeating Hillary Clinton. And it wasn't until after that pulled President's Daily Brief document that you referenced that the Principals Committee was called in the National Security Council, and President Obama then directed Obama's DNI James Clapper to lead the effort to create this new intelligence community assessment that detailed not if, but how Moscow attempted to influence the outcome of the U.S. election. So this is the thing that I think people should pay attention to, is neither the message from President Obama's office, neither the statements coming from Democrats in Congress today and their friends in the propaganda media, none of them are addressing this fact that there was a shift, a 180-degree shift from the intelligence community's assessment leading up to the election to the one that President Obama directed be produced after Donald Trump won the election, that completely contradicted those assessments that had come previously. The second thing I want to address that's very important, Laura, is that you in the clip that you played, you saw John Brennan, James Clapper, James Comey stated with high confidence this January intelligence community assessment that they drafted at the direction of President Obama. The fact is that they used already discredited information like the Steele dossier. They knew it was discredited at that time, yet they used it as a source for this document that they claim to have high confidence in. They used intelligence that some of these intelligence community professionals rejected previously because of the lack of credibility and the lack of the ability to vet with any kind of confidence whether or not that information or intelligence was accurate and could be used for an assessment. There's a long laundry list of facts and intelligence reporting that directly contradict the statement coming from President Obama's office and those who are trying to deflect away from what actually happened, which was after Donald Trump was elected, led by President Obama, there was an effort to create a document that would serve as a foundation for what would be a years-long coup against President Trump, therefore trying to subvert the will of the American people who sent him to the White House in 2016.
So a couple things to unpack there. One is You heard her explain that, the attempt by the Obama team is simply trying to deflect attention from the reality of what they've found and what they have now declassified and released. They're citing things like, something to do with other, with other reports and so forth. That's not the point. Ms. Gabbard has released hundreds of documents already that show what's been done here, and some very key ones. She's going to release this week, and already, I believe, has done so, some additional documents that show how this was put together, who led it, some of the communications, and so forth. And the road leads straight back to Barack Obama. Incredibly troubling. For some, the culmination of a bunch of years of suspicion. But the reality here is that you're talking about a sitting president, at least at that time, immediately following an election, taking plans and putting together plans to try to undercut the validity of the president-elect. Just an absolute abomination of the U.S. standards and laws and practices and so forth. We're going to come back in just a moment. We're going to see some of the things that I believe you need to be careful of in the coming days, because as this continues to bubble, we're already seeing people try to take steps to squash this, even though we have the documents, even though we have literally hundreds, thousands of people researching these documents to explain exactly what happened, how it happened, who was involved, and when. So let's take a break first. We'll come right back, and during the break, we're going to hear from David Cross, one of our key partners and sponsors.
This is a special report.
Knowing how to invest your money is harder than ever before. Dealing with stock market volatility, record debt, and terrorist attacks requires new thinking. At U.S. Asset Management, we can help you see the world more clearly so that you can move beyond the chaos and invest with confidence. Call us, visit us online, or drop by our office. U.S. Asset Management, helping you make better decisions with your money.
Okay. So as we go forward, I will remind you of something we've talked about in the past, and that is the mainstream media's goal, objective, and perhaps direction to try to squash certain news that they do not want, or whoever is driving them from behind does not want to be fully heard or even understood by the American public. I'm going to show you an example of this. Tulsi Gabbard, during one of her press conferences, is being covered by CNN. And they seem to take steps to try to make sure that you don't hear what she's going to say. Let me show you this.
Intelligence community assessments released in the months leading up to the November 2016 election concluded that Russia had neither the intent nor capability to impact the outcome of the U.S. election. On December 5th.
We've been listening there to the Director of National Intelligence.
Now just listen, they step over her, and he begins narrating what she's going to say using other language, but does so in a way that you can't hear really what she's saying.
Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard continuing on what has now been a multi-day effort, not only with public statements like this, but release of documents to attempt to back up the quite extreme allegation that President Obama is guilty of treason and that he worked in some sort of conspiracy with Hillary Clinton, etc., in the assessment by the intelligence community at the time that Russia interfered in the 2016 election.
So you can hear that he steps over her, prevents you from being able to hear what she's saying, obviously, in my mind, in an attempt to make sure that you can't continue to assimilate the information that she's sharing that underscores what's happened here. This is a technique. They've done it before. You will probably hear similar things on other channels, and I would ask you to be aware of it and consider perhaps not listening to a channel that's going to do that to someone that's trying to get you on news. So the other thing to keep in mind now is, President Trump throughout the period following the election in 2020, really throughout the last 4.5-5 years, throughout his campaign, has maintained that the 2020 election was rigged and that there were problems that we did not yet know about. They've gone after court cases. They've gone after various investigations trying to get to the bottom of this. And yet now comes out information that that shows that, in fact, we've already shown that the Russia, the Steele dossier was false. That was proven a couple of years ago. Now we find out that this whole thing appears to have been a coup or a plot by the Obama administration to, again, undercut an incoming president. He was asked about that in the Oval Office in the last, I believe, 48 hours. So let's listen to his statement about what this is.
Gettr has submitted a criminal referral to the Department of Justice. From your perspective, who should the DOJ target as part of their investigation? What specific figures in the Obama administration?
Well, based on what I read, and I read pretty much what you read, it would be President Obama. He started it. And Biden was there with him, and Comey was there, and Clapper. The whole group was there. Brennan, they were all there in a room. Right here, this was the room. This is much more beautiful than it was then, but that's okay. I have nice pictures up. They came out of the vaults. They were in there for 100 years. This is much more beautiful. We have the Declaration of Independence now in the room, which wasn't here. I guess people didn't feel too good about putting it here, but I do. But you know what? If you look at those papers, they have them stone cold, and it was President Obama. It wasn't lots of people all over the place. It was them too. But the leader of the gang was President Obama, Barack Hussein Obama. Have you heard of him? And except for the fact that he gets shielded by the press for his entire life, that's the one they look. He's guilty. It's not a question. I like to say, let's give it time. It's there. He's guilty. This was treason. This was every word you can think of. They tried to steal the election. They tried to obfuscate the election. They did things that nobody's ever even imagined, even in other countries. You've seen some pretty rough countries. This man has seen some pretty rough countries, but you've never seen anything like it.
So you can see that in here that President Obama is focused directly on, President Trump is focused directly on President Obama as the driver of this. Now, here's a post from Nick Sorter, who we follow rather closely. And he notes that in one of the latest releases by Tulsi Gabbard, she's released documents that prove Obama directly gave the order to publish the Russia collusion hoax, if you will, and knew at the time that there was no proof that Putin had backed Trump. What we're going to talk about in a few minutes was there is now emerging evidence that, in fact, Russia was concerned because they could tell that Hillary was in some sort of distress, and we're going to talk about that in just a few minutes. But they obviously, if they wanted weakness in the U.S., they would not have been backing Trump. They would have been backing Hillary. But indeed, the intelligence research showed that they had neither the intent nor really the capability to directly influence voting during the elections. So we see this from Nick Sorter. We see more from Tulsi Gabbard coming out to further explain what was done, how it was done, who was involved, the names of the individuals, and so forth. And we showed you much of this during our last show. If you go to Twitter and look up DNI Tulsi Gabbard, you will be able to actually go to some of the declassified documents and find those in the dni.gov files. You can see the link down there, but if you'll simply go to X formerly known as Twitter, and look up Tulsi Gabbard, you will find a link to be able to access the actual documents, one of which we show here being cited by Nick Sorter. We talked about CNN cutting off Tulsi Gabbard. And we also touched on the fact that there appear to be folks in the Congress that are literally attempting to step in front of this. Now, some of these you would expect might be Democrats trying to prevent Obama from taking the full brunt, but others, unfortunately, are coming from the Republican ranks, it appears, and that is as concerning, or perhaps more concerning, than the Democrats stepping in. What have you heard from Elon Musk and others, specifically in the last month or so? Comments continuing to revolve around uniparty, meaning, are people really who they say they are? Are Democrats who they say they are? Are, more importantly to us, perhaps, are Republicans who they say they are? And even locally, we can see now questions emerging suggesting, have people been saying they are conservatives, Republicans indeed, and may actually not have that belief system? Maybe they're masquerading, for lack of a better term, as a Republican. I will ask that you keep your eyes on this. We'll report more on this as we see more, but it is quite concerning. Cotton and others are indicative of this, and we'll probably see more. So keep your eyes open on that, and let's attempt to make sure we look factually at what each member of Congress is doing. I think that's exceedingly important, especially right now, because one of the ways to judge who people really are is not to listen to what they say, not to listen to their rhetoric, if you will, but to look at what they do and what they have done. And we have people in Congress that have voted to send billions, for example, over to Ukraine, in spite of the wishes of the American people, and have celebrated on the floor of the House, for example, waving Ukrainian flags and dancing around and doing all this kind of stuff. And many have gone over and shaken the hand of Zelenskiy and looked the other way at the things that Zelenskiy has done, shutting down churches, imprisoning priests, appointing an ambassador that is said to be something like a satanic priestess. Who knows what these people are thinking when they do these things, but it is up to us to keep our eyeballs on this so that we can make logical judgments. We talked about Hillary Clinton and some of the things that are emerging around Hillary. Bear with me for a minute. We're going to pull up a couple things that have emerged in the last few days, and people had noted some unusual behavior from Hillary going back to the period just before the election. And now comes word that perhaps there's reasoning behind some of these strange behaviors. Let's listen to, again, Tulsi Gabbard make some comments regarding Hillary Clinton.
Level DNC emails that detailed evidence of Hillary's, quote, psycho-emotional problems, uncontrolled fits of anger, aggression, and cheerfulness, and that then Secretary Clinton was allegedly on a daily regimen of heavy tranquilizers.
Here's a video many people have seen, and we wonder what the actual condition was. It seems to have, certain words wrapped around it. But let's listen to this, and let's observe this. This is an appearance that Hillary made. Again, I believe it was in the lead up to the 2016 election. And she seems to act pretty oddly in this crowd. Is this what Tulsi Gabbard is referring to? Well, we're not sure exactly, but it appears to be something very much like what she's talking about. And I think we'll learn more as we go forward over the coming days and weeks in terms of what that condition might have been. But you'll recall that around that time frame, Hillary took, I believe, a fall, might have been getting on a plane, if I recall correctly. She also took to wearing dark blue glasses, which are associated with certain types of conditions that can be aided by wearing certain types of filters over the eyes. And lastly, you'll remember that she had to be spirited away in a van during one of the 9/11 memorial events just before the election. Now, again, what caused these things, we don't know, but it appeared to be quite serious, especially when she had to be loaded into the van bodily and appeared later on in front of Chelsea's apartment elsewhere in the city. But we will stay on this, and we want to make sure that people are aware that there does now seem to have been something going on with Hillary that had an effect on perhaps her abilities, her reactions, and so forth. Let's go ahead and take another break before we continue on. We're almost at the halfway point. Let's hear, we've done a great amount of work on nutrition. And what most people are now learning is that nutrition is not just the types of foods that you eat, but also making sure that you have the correct micronutrients, the things that get into your cells and help your cells individually work better. And so one of the key ones is what we're going to hear about next. And let's play this.
I'm a naturopathic doctor. We are in the world of medicine very acquainted with many modalities, but probably the one most familiar with everybody would be two things: homeopathy and herbs,
Mm-hmm.
maybe some nutrients too, vitamins, minerals, that kind of thing. Now, we do know a lot about the drugs because we have to find out what drug you're taking affects you and what nutrient it depletes you of, because most every drug pharmacy product will deplete something. So we have been trained and we have a database that we can check into that says this is going to take your B12 away. The pharmaceutical company cannot patent organic substances made by the body. You're not born short of Advil. You're not born short of Ritalin.
Yeah.
You can be born short of insulin, right?
Mm-hmm.
The answers to staying healthy and keeping away from even SARS or any of those things getting into you is staying healthy.
Mm-hmm.
You and I get sick because our terrain gets out of balance. Well, that's the same thing in the soil. You and I are made from this thing called dirt. And when we get out of balance, we have the same thing happen. Weeds start to grow in our body. Right? And that's what we want in our body. We want nutrients that we don't understand how to get well enough yet because our suppliers are lacking knowledge on nutrient density foods.
So this is what drove you to develop this, was your knowledge of this, right?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
You know that.
So NucleoBoost, go to cdmnutrition.com and learn more about how you can use NucleoBoost to make sure that you are getting the right type of nutrition and that you're able to actually impact your cells' performance in ways that will make you, from what I understand, feel a lot better. Okay, back to what we're seeing this week. So we're going to cover two things, and then we'll get on to something pretty interesting. So again, President Trump now is focused directly on this is something put together by President Obama. And again, we saw his comments in the Oval Office talking about, they need to start with Obama and then expand out to the other players. Well, who are some of the other players? Well, here's an example, and he posted it. Trump posted it himself, and he's listing these folks almost like the old Brady Bunch. And again, it's the names that we've talked about: Brennan, Clapper, Comey, Valerie Jarrett, Susan Rice, and others, and of course Barack Obama himself. And it does appear that these folks are going to be tied together in this, we'll call it a plot, I guess, for the moment. We will watch carefully to see what comes of the next steps here. We do expect that, given the speed of which the information on Obama and this Russian collusion hoax came out, and then almost immediately followed by the MLK release, we wonder if there aren't going to be several more releases in quick succession. It feels to many like we are going through a period of a lot of stuff in various sectors coming out, and that's why we were suggesting, keep your head on a pivot and be prepared to do some quick research so you understand other things as they potentially are released. Here's something, back to Hillary for just a moment. We're not going to speculate on this, but we did find it fascinating, and somebody brought it up and said, did you listen to this particular quote that Trump made? And if you recall, a few months ago, he stopped calling Hillary Crooked Hillary and started, for reasons we don't understand, calling her Beautiful Hillary. What does that mean? Well, we don't exactly know, but listen to this and listen very carefully. One of the things we've said in past shows is listen very carefully to Trump's exact words. He rarely makes mistakes, and if he does, sometimes they mean things. We don't know what they might mean. But here's an interesting clip.
Hillary Clinton. I used to call her Crooked Hillary. I'd say Crooked Hillary, but I took that name away from her. That was a great day. About 2 months ago, I said, you know what? Because I don't like using names on people, doubles. I think we have a lot of words out there. So I call her Beautiful Hillary. She's a beautiful woman. And
I'm going to play that one more time.
Hillary Clinton. I used to call her Crooked Hillary. I'd say Crooked Hillary, but I took that name away from her. That was a great day. About 2 months ago, I said, you know what? Because I don't like using names on people, doubles. I think we have a lot of words out there. So I call her Beautiful Hillary. She's a beautiful woman. And
Beautiful Hillary, and I don't like using, did he say names on people's doubles? We're not sure what he meant by that, but we will let it sit for now and continue to do more research as we go forward. We're going to move on to kind of a very interesting topic. He has put out a number of posts in the last 2 months. We're going to start with the most recent. And we're now at a point where we really have to begin asking some direct questions about some of the things that he is showing. What might he mean by this? Who is releasing it? And what parallels may exist between something he's released and something from the past? So we're going to show you that, and we're going to take you through a little bit of historical perspective here. And we're going to give you visibility to one of the ways that you can do some of your own research if you choose to. But we're gonna begin calling out some of these things because you really just can't ignore them anymore, and we'll show you why. Here is a post that came out from the White House and from Trump, and it says, "I was the hunted, now I'm the hunter." President Donald J. Trump, and shows the White House. And indeed, this did in fact come out from the White House on the, I believe it was the 22nd. but it bears a striking resemblance to something that's quite a bit older. And we're going to show you this. Some people remember the notion of Q posts. And the Q posts, in quick summary, began appearing back in October of 2017. They covered all kinds of different topics. They appeared initially on bulletin boards like 4chan and 8chan that most people that like myself weren't familiar with, but in some cases younger people, in some cases folks that were gamers even would look at these boards, and they began being noticed, these posts. I'm going to show you one, and we're going to look at the dates involved and just consider for the moment. We're not going to draw any conclusions, but we're going to consider a couple things. Here is, on the right-hand side, you'll see a post from October 14th, 2020 that says, "Hunters become the hunted." Gosh, it sounds pretty darn close to "I was the hunted, now I'm the hunter," doesn't it? Well, there's another post, also a Q post, from a different period that's even more interesting in all of this. We'll click to that. This post says, "Hunters become the hunted." This goes back to July 22nd, 2019. What date was the center post released from the White House? We believe it came out on July 21st, 2025. So what does this all mean? Well, we're not going to guess, but we can't fail to recognize that there seems to be some commonality here. We've also seen this a bit in the past. Here's a post from Trump going back to May. At that time, he posted this, and it said, "All roads lead to Obama." Keep in mind, this is well before Tulsi Gabbard's release this week. This goes back to May now. "Retruth if you want public military tribunals." Again, at the time this came out, it shocked many people. They didn't know what to make of it. And now, in retrospect, we wonder if this was some sort of foreshadowing. Well, again, we don't know. But let's go on one more. Also in May, Trump released this, and it said, "He's on a mission from God, and nothing can stop what is coming." Nothing can stop what is coming is a post, a saying, if you will, that dates back to the Q posts going back quite a bit. It appears in a number of them. One of the earliest, or perhaps the earliest, is November 20th, 2018. Nothing can stop what is coming. And that is verbatim in Trump's post in May. Where are we going next? There's no way for us to tell as we sit here tonight, but we do have a suspicion that this means something. What does it mean? We're not going to guess. But we will give you a little hint as to how you can do your own sort of review of this. Here is the Q posts are available through several different sites. One of the most prevalent is something called QAGG.news. So instead of being www.website.com, it's QAGG.news. If you go there, you can use their help functions and things, and you can actually look up any of the Q posts using various search terms. You'll find that there's approximately 5,000 Q posts that came out between 2017 and 2022, I believe, was one of the last ones. And they had a couple different gaps where you wouldn't see anything for a while. They might not post anything. Who posted these? We don't know. It has been suggested by military leaders that a team of military assigned to do certain types of research was potentially responsible for these. But again, we don't know, and we can't prove that. So they are fascinating, and as we go forward, we may find more and more things to compare. and we'll see if we can bring those up as they emerge. But there's just been just this last couple of months, there's been 3 different posts directly from either the White House or Trump that seem to have bearing. And so we wanted to begin giving you the ability to look for yourself, see what you can find, and that you think may be telling. I will tell you that many have gone through, beginning with the very first post back in 2017, and read all of them. It is a daunting task because there are 5,000 of them, but it's something that you can do if you choose to do. Okay, let's catch up now with what's going on in Georgia. So last week we reported that there was a meeting inclusive of Josh McCoon, Mr. Whatley showed up, Alex Kaufman, and other folks were at the table that aren't pictured here, Dennis Futch and Jason Thompson, and we understand Ginger Howard and Betsy Kramer. We don't know who for sure the people are at the table on the left and right. We had understood from some of our listeners that gentleman on the left might be a former IBM executive that used to run IBM Asia Pac. We're not sure of that. We had invited that gentleman to reach out if in fact that was him, and I don't believe we've heard. So we'll see over time. But most notably now, one of the strange things that's been going on is, of course, the First Liberty failure and the fact that it appeared that First Liberty had donated money to the Georgia GOP. Many people then were following what Raffensperger did last week in returning $8,000 or more to the receiver for the First Liberty legal matter. Others have been calling the Georgia GOP to do much the same thing. Well, lo and behold, Josh McCoon in the last couple of days has issued a statement and indeed remitted a check, we are told, and made that statement in this release, saying that they had remitted back to the receiver $36,000 and change originally brought in from the Frosts. That's great. Good step. We will give credit to those who do the right thing, and this appears to have been the right thing. Any dollars that come back would ostensibly be used by the receiver to begin making up some of the money that was lost, perhaps fraudulently, from victims of the First Liberty Ponzi scheme. However, this does not address any of the people within the Frost family that occupy slots on the Georgia GOP state committee, executive committee, or any leadership positions in Coweta County or other leadership positions in the state of Georgia. Many people, hundreds, maybe thousands now, are calling for these folks to be removed from these positions. Why? Well, one, they've done something that appears to have been terribly wrong and not in keeping with the best interests of Georgians, nor in keeping with the best standards of the Georgia Republican Party. So at the very least, they should offer their resignations. Again, they should step down off the state committee, we believe, and others believe. Brant Frost 5 and Mother Krista Frost occupy positions on the Coweta County GOP. It appeared a week and a half ago that Brant Frost 5 was going to, quote unquote, step back from the chairmanship of that county's GOP. But then just a few days later, it appeared that that had been changed and he was back in the chairmanship again. It was also that week that it was reported that he was starting a new company, ostensibly to do something very much like what First Liberty had been doing, creating loans and such. So again, many people are calling for these folks to be changed. One particularly notable issue that people are calling out, and that it appears Josh McCoon could act on, is just following the Georgia State Convention, Josh McCoon appointed Krista Frost, Brant Frost 5's sister and daughter of Brant Frost IV, the founder of First Liberty. Josh McCoon had appointed Katie Frost to be the chairman of a financial oversight committee for the Georgia GOP. Financial oversight, meaning we're going to make sure that people are doing things right. This is the daughter in the family that has been associated with First Liberty Building and Loan, that, according to the SEC, has been acting fraudulently and taking people's money, and has now put many of those investors' money at risk. And this is the person that Josh McCoon appointed to be the chairman of the Financial Oversight Committee. Nearly everybody that knows this is calling for her to be removed from that position, and for Josh McCoon to take that action immediately. We again give him credit for returning the money that was donated to the Georgia GOP. That was the right thing to do, and we will give credit for that. This is the next thing that needs to be done. There's no reason that someone that is associated with a company that has now been halted based on an SEC filing and federal investigation should be doing anything with regard to finances for the Georgia GOP, and that needs to change. So we will continue to report on that. There have been additional filings in the case, one of which you'll recall that a week ago we reported that Brant Frost IV had, in an announcement that he released to the AJC, said that he would take personal and complete responsibility for everything that happened. It was, I'm paraphrasing, but essentially, it's all me. I will work. I will apologize, but I can't based on the legal situation right now. But I will work to make this right for everybody, and it is all me. I'm taking full responsibility. Again, I'm paraphrasing. That now appears to have changed. They have, through his attorney, they have filed a brief asserting his Fifth Amendment rights, which include the right to make no statement. What will that do to the receiver's ability to get cooperation from Mr. Frost IV? We don't know, but it doesn't look very good. And it does seem to be a departure from what he had originally said. Again, we note this propensity for folks associated with these Frosts to say one thing and then a few days later do something different. Brant Frost V is stepping back from the chairmanship of COETA, and then all of a sudden, a few days later, he's back in the chairmanship. Brant Frost IV says that he will take full and complete responsibility, and then a few days later, he's filing, asserting his Fifth Amendment rights. Seems to be a pattern, in my opinion. So again, we will keep our eyes on this.
That's it today on the SCIF. Hope you enjoyed it, and we will be bringing you so much more content over the next few days. We're just getting started, getting out into the field, getting video production done, but stay with us. It's going to be great. You're going to really enjoy a lot of what we bring you and really be informed. So stay with us. We'll be back on the SCIF 10 to noon, Monday through Friday Eastern, and see you tomorrow. Thank you.